Hello everybody, my name is Blaze and this is my ongoing action RPG tutorial series. We're now in I think episode 5. Now, please excuse my voice because I'm a little bit sick. I've been working and my condition's just been getting worse and worse. So we're going to take it kind of easy today. What we're going to do is we're going to actually work solely in GameMaker. And we're going to do a little bit of cleanup, and then in the second half of the video we are going to actually go through what's called inheritance, where we basically create parent classes or parent objects for the rest of the objects in the game. So this is what we have so far. We have a character here that can walk around, they can collide with things, but if you look here you can see that when we're trying to walk into this square, our character gets stuck. Like, he can't really go anywhere. He can't go into that space. And there's a big gap when we're walking left and right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to create a new sprite up here. We're going to go create a new sprite. And we're going to create a sprite that will fit our player object somewhat. So what I'm going to do here, for the name of the sprite, I'm going to use Collider. That's the prefix that I give it, or in this case I'll just call it call. Actually, you know what? I'll just write the full word for you guys so that you understand it. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a visual representation of the collider itself. So here we have collider, I don't know, we'll use regular. So basically what I like to do in games, and I encourage you guys to follow this as well, excuse me, I just want to say I apologize in advance for any sniffing or coughing in this video. Like I said, I'm already sick. But anyway, let's keep going. The reason why I'm creating these is so that basically we have a rough idea of what objects and what size of objects are going to be in the game. So in this case, I have Collider Regular. And basically what this is going to be the size of a standard height object. So if you think about it, in real life, the average height is, I think, like somewhere close to 6 feet tall. I think. I'm not too sure about that. But if you take the average height of a character in your game, basically you can have monsters that are bigger, smaller, you can have NPCs, and basically all these in the programming world, they're just basic shapes. What you see on screen is not what the computer sees, I guess. And that's just kind of what I want to point out today. So here in the image editor here, or in the image properties, we're going to resize the canvas. My character is 34 pixels tall, but to make calculations a lot easier for myself, especially down the road, I'm going to change the width of it to just be, I think, 16, and the height of that to be 32. So there we go. And we're going to change, you should change your origin to match your actual sprites, or rather, you should change the origin to be somewhere consistent. So if your origin is in the top left, then all of your sprites should have an origin in the top left. If it's in the middle, then all of it should be in the middle. So let's visualize this actual sprite, and let's draw a square, or a rectangle in this case. Basically all I'm doing is just making sure that if I don't have the sprite yet, I at least have a stand-in. So we can at least identify, or we can at least tell that we have something there even though we don't have a sprite for it. This is really useful. It's a really useful technique to have for when you are making your game and you're not quite sure what the sprite will look like, but you want to get the gameplay down. So having basic shapes like this will help a lot. So here we go. Let's go to Object Player now. We're not going to be doing too much programming today, but what we're going to do is actually change the collision mask from View Collider to Collider Regular. Now let's play the game and let's see how that stacks up. I want to try and keep this video short, or this part of the video short, because there's quite a few complex things that we're going to be going through, but hopefully you can learn something, you can pick something up from it. If you have any ideas for a Code Bites video, I'd love to hear it. I am planning on doing a Spelunky style random dungeon generator tutorial for you guys, but if you have any other ideas, please do share them. I'm keen to hear you out. So once we have that in place, since our collider is now, well, where it is, you can see here that we are colliding. We're a lot closer to the wall. We actually, if you look closely, the legs actually hit the wall as they try to walk into it. But that's because that's how I've drawn the sprite. How you draw the sprite is completely up to you. That's your design decision, not mine. But you can see that it more or less lines up, and that's kind of what we want. Now, with this object collision, actually, I want to make a brief point on this. This can be anything in your game. Here in GameMaker Studio 2, if we drag this over here, we can drag this all the way out here. We can resize objects, and you can do this in Studio 1 as well. You can resize these objects to basically be the walls in your game. In this tutorial series, I won't be using these sprites, these object collisions for walls, but if you wanted to do that for your game, then there's nothing stopping you from doing that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just demonstrating just the flexibility that you have with these objects. So basically here, if I play the game, what I've done is I've essentially created the walls that you can use for the game. So let that play. And there you go. We can collide with walls here, we can collide with things down here, but that's not what I'm using these sprite objects for. What I'm actually going to be using them for will be the, basically the enemies, NPCs, and other things. For things like walls, I'm going to be using tile collisions, but if you wanted to use object collisions like this to set up your walls, then by all means, do so. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. That's completely up to you. So let me just put this object here. So that's really the only thing that I wanted to show you guys today. Excuse me. That was pretty much it. What I'm going to show you now, as I rename this object, is I'm actually going to show you guys the very basics of inheritance and creating parent objects for pretty much anything in your game. So let me just quickly rename this collider basic. I just want to call it that because it's easier for me to identify and I can sort everything out. Alright, so here in our object collision, we can see that we have absolutely no code in it. It does nothing. It's just a static object. Now, if we have a look at our state idle, which we will clean this up at a later date because we can still clean it up. But for now, let's just keep it as it is. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But what we're going to do is when we collide with something, we're basically checking for object collision, right? Anything that is labeled as an object collision object. The thing is, with inheritance, what happens is anything that is a child of this object will inherit properties of object collision. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So let's create a new object here. Create a new object. And we're actually going to create the base object for enemies. So we're going to call this par enemy. And here in the parent section, click that, and then we can click object collision. All right. Now we are going to give it a sprite. Seeing as we don't have a sprite yet, let's just give it the collider regular sprite. This is what I mean by using primitives, right? Even though you don't have a sprite, you can have the gameplay done. And when you have the gameplay done, it might not look pretty, but at least you can show it off to people and say, hey, I have a working game that you can play. It doesn't look pretty, but it works and it is playable. Most programmers, and actually quite a few people that are hiring that look for game demos, would be more interested in the gameplay rather than how pretty it looks. Unless, of course, you're applying for an artist position. Then in that case, make sure it looks good and plays well. So let's play the game here. But I think I made a mistake. I have made a mistake. I haven't actually put it into the room yet. So let me get that done first. All right, let's close that. Let's go back into the room editor and let's put our parent enemy object here. Now, keep in mind that here, I've left the collision mask as same as sprite. All right. Let's just see what happens when we actually try to play the game. Since it is a child, or its parent object is the object collision, we should be able to collide with it, no problems. There you go. See, it works. So we basically walk into the parent's enemy as if we were walking into the regular object collision. So it's a very useful thing to have, having inheritance in your game, because basically once you've calculated collisions for one thing, then you've pretty much created collisions for everything in the game. That's what's so useful about having parent or hierarchy systems. Now here, even though I've set it to same as sprite, remember that we're going to be changing this eventually. But seeing as this is just like a base class, I guess, then we don't really need to worry about that. Because basically all of our enemies will be child objects of this parent enemy. And let's say we create like treasure chests or something, which again is in a future video. But with treasure chests, they would all be like children objects of a different object. But how far can we actually push the idea of creating a hierarchy system or a parent-child system? Well, you can actually create an indefinite list. Like you can have this parent object collision might have like a whole range of different children, like parent enemy, parent NPC, parent treasure item, parent destructible stuff, whatever. And those parents can also have their own children as well. There's an indefinite list, like an indefinite tree that you can create. My recommendation to you guys out there, of course, is to probably keep it to maybe 2 or 3 levels deep. Don't go any deeper than that because it gets a little bit complicated and you might end up making duplicates of objects. So really in this video, that's all that I wanted to show you guys. It's really just to prep you guys for the next video that's coming up. We're going to be making our first enemy. So your homework for this video is to create primitive shapes, right? Rectangles and squares that are going to roughly represent what your enemies and what your NPCs and playable characters are going to look like. So that's your homework for now. Hopefully you learned something. I know this video was kind of bare, but I do promise that the next one will be interesting. We're going to be working with enemies in the next video. So keep an eye out for that. And also if you have any questions and if you have an idea that you want to propose for Code Bites, I'd love to hear it from you guys. Anyway, I'm going to go take a nap. I'm going to take the rest of the day off. That's all from me, and I'll see you all later, guys. Bye.